back again.
I just tried to sing the music. I'm so lame.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't even attempt to it, so you're way ahead of me. So I'm Lynn, and I'm a journalist and content creator. And you are?
Oh yes, I am Rachel Smith. I'm the founder of Rachel's List, which is a jobs board, blog, toolkit with lots of resources for creative people. And I'm also a journalist, content creator and copywriter. And we are your hosts tonight, well, today or whenever you happen to be listening. We're your hosts every episode of this podcast. We're not giving it to anyone else, are we?
No.
We're going to be the hosts.
It's the Content Bite. And so it's a podcast for journos, content writers, digital writers, copywriters, basically anyone who uses their words to make money.
And anyone who doesn't but is still a freelancer and wants to allow wisdom.
Our wisdom.
Do we have wisdom? Are we wise?
Oh, we're trying.
Well, today what are we talking about? We're talking about...
why you shouldn't undersell yourself.
And I also think that is the big elephant in the corner of the room.
Undercharge.
No, let's just do that one again. Hang on. Today we are talking about the big elephant in the corner of the room, which is...
undercharging.
Yes.
So many people undercharge. I think if I heard from writers all the time, they're saying, I should have charged more. I should have charged more all the time when a job is bigger than they thought it was, or they realise what other people get paid.
I think it is the biggest thing for freelancers is what to charge, and we've covered that in maybe episode 2, I think, on money. But I think unlike someone who's on salary and just gets paid and does their work, goes to work, comes home, gets paid, freelancers are constantly having to negotiate, on top of hustling. They're having to negotiate on every project, every short gig, show me your rates, here's my budget. You're constantly doing that, aren't you, as a freelancer?
Yeah, and it can get quite exhausting.
It's exhausting, but... and that's why I think we fall into that trap of undercharging a lot of the time. One of the biggest mistakes that freelancers make. But why do we get stuck in that kind of,
I think
the friend zone? We get stuck in the undercharging zone.
I think it's important that sometimes we start from the wrong perspective. We started from when we've been in-house on a 9-to-5 job, and we might have been paid an hourly rate, and usually that's where we start, and we don't actually think that through.
Beyond that. We don't think as a business.
Yeah.
And think what else goes into running a business and how should that be reflected in my hourly rate.
Yeah.
We just think, well, I was being paid $50 an hour, so that can be my rate. No.
Because when you were paid $50 an hour in-house, you weren't paying for your computer programs or your electricity or your paper or the accounts department.
Or your subscriptions to things or whatever.
So you need to take all that into consideration.
Yeah. And we did that in our, I think it's episode 2, how to talk about money, where you work out what you're worth and your rate and everything so that you can actually, be charging closer to what you should be charging.
We're also, I think a lot of people worry, maybe this is partly when you're a freelancer and you work a bit in isolation, we don't know what we're really worth, so we lowball it because we're always worried that the clients are going to say no if we ask for too much.
I think as well there's this whole thing that everybody hates talking about money.
Yes.
I don't. I actually love talking about money.
I've got way better at it now. Yeah.
I think after you were in business for yourself for a while and you start to be, taken advantage of by a client or two, or not costing something, accurately, and so you kind of do the whole thing with this simmering resentment because
it's a killer.
you're getting paid half of what it's worth or something. You start to become actually very, very good about talking about money and negotiating. And
you do. You also tend to know how long things will actually take.
Well, I think that comes with experience though, doesn't it?
It does.
You kind of can figure out, well, I can do an article and talk to 2 sources and do all the research in X amount of days.
Yes.
But you have to kind of make a few mistakes, don't you, before you get to the point where it becomes easy to cost something.
You also get better at estimating how complex a job is. So if somebody asks you to edit something or whatever, you can look at a piece of copy after a while and go, okay, this needs this amount of work. I reckon I can do that in an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours. You get a bit of an idea. Plus also, I think you sort of know, because I used to think and it might take me 2 to 3 hours to write a story, and I used to charge 3 hours,
Mm.
and then you realize, well, there's still another 2 hours organizing the interviews, typing up the work, getting it transcribed, all the other things that are beyond just the actual writing. So that's sort of so that's why, and we talked about project rates, which is why it's good to bundle that all up, and not, because sometimes your clients will say, but that's only going to take you 3 hours.
Yeah, I was talking to a copywriter about this. I think I was telling you, you know, and she was saying that she, you know, factors in thinking time, because she's like, you know, the client could have done all that and they could have given me all their strategy and everything, but they're handing that to me. So it's about, I get to sit there and think and, you know, try and come up with the strategy for the project and that sort of thing. So that has to be factored in as well. And that's really about being brave and realising what you're actually doing. You're not there to do it for free, so all of that has to be factored in.
Can we just say, never do anything for free?
No, do not work for free, people.
Do not work for free.
That's a whole other podcast episode. We'll get to that.
But we just need to say it.
Yes. Look, I think as well, the other reason that we can get stuck in that undercharging zone is because we might end up with a client that kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit, and you know, that's also another podcast episode that we'll be covering. But you know, if you're new to freelancing and you underestimate how long a project might take, or you get a client that, you know,
scope creep.
Yes, scope creep, where basically the client will say, oh, well, I know that I told you that I just wanted blog posts, but can you also just do a couple of social teasers, and do you mind doing the EDM as well? That won't take you very long. And so
have I mentioned that there's three case studies in this, like 600 words?
Yeah, or you don't mind doing another interview and a breakout box or something. You know, it happens with editors too, scope creep all the time. Yeah. And we can be very bad once there's a fixed price involved, or you've quoted on a project. We can be very bad at going back and saying, that's actually outside of scope.
Yes.
But you have to become really good at doing that. Yes. This is outside of scope. I'm just going to send you a revised quote, you know, and just be very, very upfront and ballsy about it. Because,
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we get out of the undercharging bind?
I think you also have to realise the fundamental thing that if you undercharge, you can actually lose your big clients. Like the
Why
big,
is that?
That's, I think it makes you look like an amateur.
Yeah.
In fact, I've actually heard of people who say, I wouldn't, look, they only want to charge $50 an hour, whereas normally my copywriters charge $120 an hour. So clearly they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it makes them think twice.
Yeah,
That's
it does.
So true. So those big fish will just swim away if you don't charge big bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I also think that, you know, a way to get out of, you know, that undercharging thing is once you start to get more confident in your skills and more confident in, you know, your client base and everything, start raising your rates. And you might want to do that with new projects that come along.
Yeah.
Or you might want to consistently do it. My accountant always says to me, either pick a date and go with it. So either do 1st of July, raise your rates. Or 1st of January, raise your rates, you know, and you just do it every single year. I mean, other businesses do it. Yeah. Everybody does it. So why shouldn't you raise your rates? You know? And we also have to talk about having different rates. Should you have different rates for different clients?
I do sometimes.
Yeah.
I also, because every job is different. That's also why I don't have a rate card. I know some people do, but there are some jobs that require a lot more work, a lot more research. So if you just say, I charge, you know, $600 for a blog post, some blog posts you can pretty well write from the top of your head and it's easy, and others might take 2 days of research. So yes, I do have different rates, and depending on the complexity of it, sometimes if I need to have more experts or you need to have more case studies, more interviews, yes. And sometimes bigger corporate clients might pay more than a small sort of medium business. Also, big clients tend to want to pay 30 days. I'll accept slightly lower rates if they pay within 7 days. A client that you know you're going to have to struggle to get money out of, particularly a big corporate or certain media organisations that take a long time to that pay.
No
well,
names.
you know, that might make a difference.
Yeah. I definitely have different tiered rates for different clients, because I'll do stuff for big clients and obviously charge top dollar. But then I'll have smaller clients, you know, that plug the gaps and, like you say, pay really promptly. And so I will, you know, because I think you'd be crazy to, you know, pitch for a job with a smaller client that might give you ongoing work every month, but charge them, you know, a really high rate, because they're just going to say no, and you might have done yourself out of $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month if you want those small little clients to plug the gaps.
I also a lot of people charge a little bit less if you get a retainer agreement.
Yeah, of course.
So that's basically guaranteed amount of work every month. I've got a really big retainer client, and I don't tend to charge for some of their meetings. I have the odd meeting once a year. I have a regular week with them, and I don't really charge them for that but they give me a regular amount of work that I can rely on.
Okay, so the other big way to start to get a sense of whether you're undercharging or not is talk to other freelancers that you trust.
Exactly.
I really think that, you know, we can sort of try and keep that information to ourselves, or perhaps we're shy about sharing that information, but really it's so powerful, isn't it? Being able to share that information, and, you know, it can really make you more confident about putting your rates up, and about knowing what the actual market rates are for different things. And also you can ask, you know, you can just be really honest with each other, can't you? And ask how they bumped it up. And
I don't mind sharing the rates with what I charge with other freelancers. I think you've got to trust people, and I think it's important in transparency. Also, like Lindy Alexander she shares the rates, her income, which is actually quite helpful. And you've done those survey a few years.
We've got the survey, but the big thing that we've got on Rachel's list, which we did as a lead magnet for job posters, was the pay rates report. It was just like a thing that we had designed, and we compiled all the pay rates from our surveys and from Kate Toon and a few other big industry surveys, and we put them all in for a range of creative, you know, projects, freelance rates. And anyway, it went so bananas because the job posters got wind of, the job seekers got wind of it on Rachel's list, and they kept saying, "Can we download it?" And so we just had to make it available. But it's been downloaded so many hundreds of times by people all throughout the industry.
Yeah,
so
it's good to have a benchmark.
It's a good benchmark. Yeah, I think you also have one more idea on how we can get out of undercharging.
I think creating a niche. That's a bit of a thing with me anyway, and I think that the more you work in your niche, it puts you in greater demand, and clients come to you. And if a client comes to me, I'm always confident in charging what I think I'm worth, because they've already heard about me from somebody else, and you know, there's a reason, and so I always am pretty strong then.
That's a really good point. Okay, I think we're done for today.
I think we're done for today, this week even.
Yes.
So you'll be listening to Lynn and Rachel on the Content Bite.
Yes, and you can find us on Facebook under the Content Bite, or email us your feedback or your ideas for things you'd like covered in future episodes, or just to say hello. We love an email.
We do love an email.
People are emailing us cat pictures. Suggestions. Telling us not to giggle so much. We're really trying, I promise.
So the email address is thecontentbite@gmail.com. Okay.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.